Seeing is believing. But unfortunately, a lot of people see and they're not seeing correctly. So what they start talking about is not really correct. And therefore, people think that they're crazy and they don't pay any attention to them. And so we always like to have special people on our radio show that helps people understand there are such new technologies out there to help them. And most of them is pain-free, and sometimes it's fun. So I've asked Dr. Larry Lampert, who's a developmental behavioral optometrist. That's a big subject. And he has a private office in Boca Raton, to come in and talk. Now, you've heard of him before. He's talked here. He talks a lot of other places. He does take care of a lot of adults, even children, if they have visually related learning problems. He does a lot with the sports fields, and he helps professional amateur athletes. And so he has a lot of things. I don't know how he keeps up with it, but we're happy when he will give us a little time. So thanks for joining us, Larry.
Thank you, Anita.
It was a big introduction, but
that was.
It's always hard to figure, what to say about you other than that you're so cute.
Oh, thanks.
So, you are always on the cutting edge of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing, though, is in what you do is you are helping the community in many ways, not just individuals, but I know you said you were doing something really a little special now.
Yeah. We're actually working with a county's police department, law enforcement. We're starting with the citizen observers, which there's thousands of them, actually. And they're the eyes and ears for the badged employees. Tend to be senior population. And we're doing visual skills training for them. So, what I do, if people haven't heard me before, is work with the visual system differently than the eye doctors and the way we're used to thinking we care about our eyes, which is you go to the eye doctor, he sees if you need glasses, he makes sure your eye's healthy, and that's about the end of it. Where I look more at vision as a sense, how do we function with the information from our eyes? So it's called functional vision, where I work with children, sports teams, law enforcement, like I mentioned, and also stroke and functional vision rehab at places like Regents Park in Boca, where anyone who's had a fall or a stroke or concussion. But with the law enforcement, we're working with visual skills training so that these officers can go out, make them safer on the road, observe more, and basically make quicker, safer decisions, even driving safety. The visual skills training I do, computer-based, has been shown to be effective at reducing car accidents up to 50% and improving braking distance 22 feet at 55 miles an hour. So it's helpful to any senior that wants to do this type of work, bring the eyes and the visual reactions to more youthful levels.
Well, I have believed Larry when he's talked about this. So my husband, Bill, who is 91, he has macular degeneration in one eye, and he has he doesn't have a problem with glaucoma because he takes drops, but he loves to read. I mean, the New York Times is the most important thing in his life, and so I don't want anything to I don't want anything to be negative. I want it to keep getting more positive.
Right.
And so we've been doing some of the things that Larry's talked about, and it's so simple. It's hard to believe that it's not a lot of work. It's just, and you can explain what you do with us, but I am so glad that we found you, and I hope other people will also go and take part in this.
Yeah, and it's fun to work with you guys. And it's working with the vision, I said more of as a sense. In other words, just because you see letters clearly doesn't mean you can be a proficient reader and gather information from reading. Some people have difficulty with the movements the eye has to make, the accurate fixations across a page. When you think about what are my eyes doing when I read, they're not smoothly going across the lines. They're making all these little precise jumps. You have to land in the right place to be able to read off the word. And that's actually a property of the peripheral vision processing. We all think about peripheral vision being way off to the sides, but it starts very close to the center vision, and that's what controls your eye movements so they land on the right place. So some of our procedures are working with the integration of the central peripheral system so we can make these fixations proper. In law enforcement, the training drill we give the officers is called gaze control, and that means making an eye movement from one object to another, not just following a bird across the sky, but looking from, say, one person to another. So if an officer's in a situation where he's looking at a suspect or anybody, and all of a sudden a hand comes out of a pocket, he's got to make that eye movement down there to the hand to make sure that if he sees something shiny, is it a gun? Is it a knife? Is it a cell phone? Those are all different threats, and be able to react to that information very quickly, to be safe so everybody's safe. So we work on that. It's called gaze control, and it's the same similar type of training we do for reading, where you have to control the eye movements going from word to word. So this is the type of stuff we work with, not just glasses for the chart.
See, now we don't think about any of this, actually, Larry. I just read, and I don't ever think I have a book right here. It's just looking at it, and I'm reading it, and I just read. I don't know that my eyes are doing what you said.
Right. Well, think about other visual processing. I have a little sore throat if I cough a little bit here. I apologize. So here we go. But anyway, getting back to it, the peripheral processing system goes into the brain 25% faster than the part of the eye that reads the letters on the chart. 20% of it goes to balancing. This is why it's related to falls. They found that vision or weakened binocular system contributes more to falls in the elderly than cataracts or macular degeneration, which affects more the chart vision. So we look at that area when we work with it. But the side vision is what tells you where you are and where something is in relationship to you. So if you're driving down the road, you want to look at a sign, think about what makes my eyes land on that sign over there. It's not the 20/20 part of the eye. Or you walk through a doorway. Hopefully you don't bang into it, right? You don't think much about it, but you walk through that doorway smoothly, elegantly, because I know you, Anita. You always look very nice and
Thank you.
elegant.
So you're telling me that my peripheral
is guiding
it's working,
you,
but
right,
I don't know it's
right,
working.
You don't think
right?
about it. It's guiding you through that doorway. Or do you ever have the experience where you're driving down the road and you're daydreaming for 5 minutes and you start to think, why don't I run off the road? I'm not really thinking about driving that I'm doing right now.
Okay, so what is happening?
That's because it's all on that less conscious peripheral processing system. So aside from testing your ability to see dots in a machine, the eye doctors don't really look at how are you functioning with that system. And the awareness or acuity of that system out there is trainable, and it diminishes with age. So that as we age, it's kind of like you've heard of tunnel vision, right? Under stress. Happens to baseball players, happens to police officers. They say, I walked into a room, I had to pull my weapon. I saw a guy over there. I didn't see the guy right over there in the corner of the room because the peripheral will functionally constrict. Now, it does that with aging, and it does that when we're driving in a car. So that a lot of people who say they go through the green light, someone runs a red light and hits them, they'll say they never saw it coming because their vision just naturally tunnels as they're moving. We used to have to train pilots years ago before all the instruments to make a lot of eye movements and keep their system turned on, so their eyes didn't just kind of tunnel and go nearsighted on them, actually.
Now, as you're talking,
myopia.
I'm trying to see what's on my right and my left and everywhere, and it's, but I know the one thing that really appealed to me when we started working together, since we work with the older adults, was the falling, because you spoke the truth, that the falling is so important, but I didn't quite understand how the eyes, you just explained it, but I didn't understand what happens when someone's walking and they just don't see something correctly, and that's when they fall. They don't see different, maybe levels in the street.
Right, exactly. Or there's several different areas that can be. One can be that the eyes work together as a team, but the forces holding the eyes together as a team, the muscles, are weak at doing that. And what will happen is, over time, perception of where something really is, depth perception, can falter or change. So you have somebody who says, boy, I walked by that chair 20 times today in my apartment. This time I tripped over it. You know what I mean? Because their perception changed of how far away or where it was in space. So that's one area. The other is these eye movements. They're called these fixations, or they're called saccades or saccades. They become less efficient, and they can affect your balance, so that someone, as they're looking around a room, their eye movements are slowed down. And when you look from one object to another, your eyes don't go right from that one object to the other. They land kind of short of that object, then make a corrective eye movement, all in about 300 milliseconds. So we call that an undershoot and correct. So some of the seniors I examine, their eyes will make 2 to 3 jumps before they land on the target. So this affects the ability to scan a room and look for things while someone's walking through there, so they may trip over something. And then just this whole tunneling of the side vision can affect the depth perception and the balance. Remember, 20% of your side vision goes to balancing centers. So all these factors add together and can contribute to falls, again, like I said, more than cataracts or macular degeneration, which is why when I work at Regent's Park, anyone who's had a fall over there is evaluated by me for these type of things, and then they'll program that into the occupational therapy department to be able to strengthen the muscles and improve that system. You know, in sports, it's interesting. There's a golfer named Val Skinner. If you follow LPGA golf, she's a rookie of the year. But very early in her career, she used to be able to play the first 9 holes beautifully, and then everything would start missing short and to the right of where she felt she was aiming her ball, placing her ball. And what was found out is that her eye teaming was a little weak, so that it held up pretty well the first 9 holes. After that, it weakened, and her perception of where things were actually changed on her. So she did visual skills training, straightened that out, and the rest is history, where, again, she announces for the Golf Channel and was the Rookie of the Year.
So before you started doing this, or let's say before this was even developed, what were the people doing? They just lived with what they had and they went down the tubes, if that's what happened, right?
Yeah, even now, how many people do I hear come to my office and say, well, an eye doctor checked me, I have some condition, say after a stroke or after a concussion, and I was told basically, you know, we'll just live with it.
There's nothing to do, right?
We'll check it in 6 months. Or better than that is that it's not even found. It's not even detected. You know, the U.S. Army, you know, all the vision to us is reading the eye chart. The eye chart was developed during the Civil War to see who could hold a rifle and go into the battlefield, but it's still considered the standard of eye care. The U.S. Army has kind of figured out that it's not everything, because a lot of guys are coming back now with concussions from the Middle East, and the eye doctors were looking at them and saying, well, the eyeball as an organ is healthy. There's nothing wrong with these guys. And there was nothing further from the truth. They have a lot of problems with their visual processing, the way their eyes hold together as a team. So now the Army at Walter Reed and 4 other centers actually has optometric clinics that now assess these soldiers differently than was done before and do the interventions that are needed to fix them and straighten them out.
This is marvelous. I always love talking to Dr. Larry Lampert, who is a developmental behavioral optometrist. He has a private office in Boca. Write this number down, and then we'll tell you why you should be going there. The number is 561-479-1411. Again, that's 561-479-1411. I'm Anita Finley, and we're talking about all the ways that you can have better vision. It's not necessarily even clear. It's just that you can function better, not fall, and other kinds of benefits, as he does this with the professionals in sports. But I was thinking about something that Tom Brady and Bill and I are not avid football fans. However, what happened is I was reading a New York Times article about Tom the day before the football game. Let's see, it was a Sunday paper. And so, yeah, the evening was Super Bowl. And it talked about him. And if you didn't read it, it was amazing, because I really wanted to save it for you. As most coaches, you know, they work the arms of the quarterback, but someone told him to go and get coached by baseball players.
Mm-hmm.
And he did. And that's because they have to throw a certain way. And that's what he claims has helped him with his arm.
Wow.
You probably didn't know that.
No, that's good information.
Because he has a fantastic arm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he, you know, because we know what baseball players have to do. It's everything. Once they get that ball, they better damn well get it where it's supposed to go, right?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I work with the ball
I
players.
know that.
You know, I'll be at spring training. I'll be at what's called the PBATS conference, which will be all the Florida spring training teams. The people will be together, and I'm going to speak to them at their dinner and education night. And we've always worked with the position players, they call them, you know, the outfield, the shortstops, and the batters. And now they have us working with pitchers, looking at the visual system. And I've kind of brought in a program where not only do we look at, like, well, how can we improve the visual skills, but how can a pitcher read what the visual skills of the batter is that he's pitching against? You know, things like, is the batter right or left eye dominant? Is he right-handed, right-eyed?
I don't really know that.
Right. Well, he can tell. I can tell by observing a lot of people whether they're right or left-eyed. And by posture, the way, you know, simply if you put a camera up to your right or left eye, that's probably your dominant eye. You would use it to look through a peephole in a door. Or I watch the pirate movies with Johnny Depp, and I always see him take that telescope and put it up to his left eye, so we know he's left eye dominant.
They didn't say that's what you should do, right?
Right. He just automatically takes it up to the left eye, so he's obviously a left-eyed fellow. I don't think they wrote that into the script, So it's observing these type of things in people. Like I say, even the posture of a batter, I can sense sometimes, are they right or left-eyed? So as the pitchers start to compile this information about the batters, they can try to pitch on an angle that keeps it out of the line of the dominant eye differently. Say a right-handed right-eyed batter versus a right-handed left-eyed batter.
So you're going to teach this to all the teams, and so not anyone's going to have a
Well, I'm available for an exclusive. They want to pay the money, I'll just work with one team. But right now I work wherever they like me.
That's great. Well, let's get into really the nuts and bolts of this, because I want people to understand this is not complicated. No. When they come to see you, I was amazed when you put those glasses on me, and maybe because I went because I read so much and I want good strength, and because I tend to fall asleep if I'm reading too much. And so you told me that you could probably help me with that. Mm-hmm. Of course, Bill has the macular degeneration in one eye, and you want to help strengthen that, and we don't want him to fall. But tell everybody exactly what this entails.
You come to my office for a visit. I actually leave an hour for that visit. So it's not a rushed eye exam where there's a lot of technicians and maybe seeing the doctor for 3 to 5 minutes at the end. I actually spend an hour with you, finding some things out. Although I don't need to find out a lot in the history. It gives me a lot of information, but I usually like to find out things while I do my probes and my exams and tell you what I think is going on. And then I go over what are the options to work with this. Again, different than just traditional glasses. The glasses you mentioned are actually called Yoked Prisms. So it's a prism lens, which are traditionally used to correct double vision, but the way we orient the prisms is different in a Yoked Prism so that it affects on that peripheral vision system and that processing that I talked about earlier. So I've worked with kids that could not catch a baseball. If I throw a ball at them, it hits their body before their hands move. They just don't know where it is in space. And a lot of these kids, within a week or two of using these lenses, they're hitting baseballs, very dramatic stories. It'll work with the depth perception and help put that together. So it's working with lenses differently than just correcting your eyes for the chart. More like you can go to a dentist who does braces, and you're going to shape the formation of your teeth and how they form. And now you can do that with the eyes. It's more like braces for the eyes. Can we control? Like I had a child in yesterday where my probes tell me this child is going to become very nearsighted. So what can we do to slow that down? And there's different prescribing ways or different special contact lenses that we can use. I have I believe, a 9-year-old that was in this week as well, that within 6 months, her prescription went from negative 1.50 to negative 3.00. So that's a huge jump in a child for 6 months. And the child has a sister who's now at -9. So I'm fitting her with actually a multifocal lens that the way it puts the image on the back of the eye does not promote the elongation of the eye, which increases the nearsightedness. So we're working with things like that as well. It's developmental. It's like, proactive instead of just treating your eyes after you become nearsighted.
And I met a patient of yours that's how I actually met her, who is an author. And she said when she was young, she used to have, what do you call it when your eyes go in?
Strabismus, esotropia.
And what is it? What's the word that everybody knows? That
a crossed eye.
Crossed eye.
Yeah.
Crossed eye. That's what we all know.
Yeah.
And, of course, that's very embarrassing. And then she probably can't read right with a crossed eye?
Yeah, it affected her function. And when she came to me, told me that it actually created double vision when driving sometimes.
But she said it had been corrected when she was young.
Well, surgically.
Oh, it had been corrected surgically.
Yeah, she had surgeries to
try to straighten the eye. And then what happened? Why didn't it stay?
Well, that's the interesting question is, do all these children or people getting these eye muscle surgeries, is that really the solution for that problem? And the people who do what I do, remember we talked about that you have the center vision, the peripheral vision?
Yeah.
Center vision identifies the letters. The peripheral vision is where am I? Where are things? So it's felt that in a lot of these individuals, the brain has the wiring a little wrong, that it's not wiring, say, the center vision of one eye with the center vision of the other. It's wiring the center vision of one eye with the peripheral vision of the other eye. So you kind of like look at things with one eye and get through the doorways with the other eye. So if you straighten this out surgically, but you don't do the therapies to kind of rewire the brain, the eye can go back, which is why a lot of these people, by the time they're in their 20s, they've had 3 muscle surgeries. If it was that exact, why would they have to keep on doing it? Where the goal of the therapies I do is to train the brain to use the center of the right eye with the center of the left and the periphery of the right with the periphery of the left. Then you'll have a straight eye, and you'll have someone who functions with depth perception.
And have you tried, does this really work?
Yeah. There's a book out by Sue Barry. She's a PhD. I forget what kind of, maybe an engineer or something like that. And it's called Fixing My Gaze, Gaze. And as an adult, she had eye muscle surgeries, and she went for vision therapy, not with me, with another doctor who does what I do, and had remarkable results, gained the eyes being straight, and gained depth perception. And said the first time she worked out of a session and looked up and noticed that the rear view mirror was actually a distance from the windshield. She'd always seen everything as flat, like you look at a painting.
Right.
It was flatland, we call it, and now all of a sudden her depth perception opened up, that she was so excited one day that when it snowed, she laid on the ground and just watched the snowflakes come down for an hour with her new improved vision. So this was someone who was an adult.
So I just want to give your phone number again. This is such exciting stuff, Larry. It's absolutely beyond explaining more than you'd explain so well. And it is very exciting stuff. It's, as we call it, cutting edge. So one thing, you're also on the medical staff at Pinecrest Rehab Hospital, and you're in the Neuro Optometric Rehabilitation. Most people don't even know these things exist.
Right. Like I say, the U.S. Army does now, but a lot of centers don't. We're at Regents Park, and I've been at Pinecrest Rehab, where they now understand this and bring in a specialist like me to do it. Neuro Optometric Rehab or functional vision. And they call these things undetected vision problems because, most of the eye care docs look at these people and they're just looking at the eyeball as an organ. They're not looking at how we function with our eyes.
So if people would come to you, are they coming to you for a total optometric exam, or should they go to their ophthalmologist or to an optometrist for that, and then you are specialist? It's
a mix of both. Sometimes
you do get people who just, you could do a total exam for somebody.
Yes, if someone comes in to me and they have not been to their eye doctor in a year or two and they need a full exam with dilation, glaucoma test.
And you do that?
I will do all those steps. Sometimes they've just been to their eye doctor a week or two ago, and he's sending them in for the specialty service. Then I don't need to repeat all those steps. I just need to take the tests that I would test to find the underlying problems.
Well, I know you're not a vet, but Snowy, my precious dog, she has dry eye, and I give her drops twice a day, 2 kinds of drops, and I guess it'll just keep it going. I don't even know what dry eye is. It when it can't produce tears.
Right. It's actually when the tears don't stick well to the front of the eye.
Yeah.
So it can be ironic to some people how a doctor will tell them you have dry eye, and they say, well, but tears are running down my face all day. But the eyeball itself is dry because the tears aren't sticking well. And there's 3 layers, mucus layer right up on the cornea. There's an aqueous or water layer in between, and then an oil layer on the front. And a lot of times these 3 layers, they're not interacting properly so that they break down. And a lot of times I think it might be the mucus layer. The mucus on the cornea or the front of the eye is one of the only substances that will actually stick to Teflon. That's how strong it sticks to things. And if that system is deficient, then it all breaks down. They feel like it could be what's called meibomian gland dysfunction, meaning the glands in the eyelids aren't giving off the right things in the right quantities. So that's where the latest thinking is. But a lot of the remedies are, number one would be to tell somebody to hydrate. Are you drinking enough water? And then use these wetting drops. Some people, the pores are blocked in the eyelids that give off these substances. So you do lid scrubs with a washcloth or something just to kind of keep the pores open.
Well, that's interesting. Before I put the drops in, I have to take a very warm rag and keep them on her eyes
Right.
This is really interesting. She sits there. Maybe it feels good.
Probably.
But her face is always a little wet, as that's what's happening. The tears are going on her fur, isn't it?
Yeah, she's making the tears, but they're not sticking to the eyes.
It's just so full of all this good information, Larry. I just have to share that you're certainly, and you are unique in what you do. I have never, before I met you, I never heard about this.
Well, before you go on, let me give you one more reason why some people have dry eyes, and that's because the way the eyes hold together as a team is weakened. Again, that marginal binocular system, it's been shown that these people will blink less times per minute. It helps them hold their eyes together, and that dries out the eyes as well.
But you're not taking care of dogs, I gather.
No, I haven't figured out how to do it.
Do you know I actually had to take her to a dog ophthalmologist?
Yeah, I'll have to think about that.
Right. I mean, I don't know if she'll be quiet. Maybe we can put glasses on her or do something.
There you go.
I mean, I'm game with you. I mean, you're so far ahead of everybody else. Maybe you will think of something. I have no idea. Wouldn't that be great? But I am really extremely happy that you were able to share everything that you do with us, because it is really great. So I'm Anita Finley. You were listening to Dr. Lawrence. We call him Larry Lampert. He's a developmental behavioral optometrist with a private office in Boca Raton. In addition, and you've heard, to general eye care, he works with children and adults that have visually related learning problems. He develops sports vision programs for professional and amateur athletes, and he works very closely with the Regents Park over there in Boca. I do also, so it's really quite a pleasure to be with them. And he's on the medical staff of Pinecrest Rehab Hospital, where he does Neuro Optometric Rehabilitation. His office is actually located at 9874 Yamato Road, and you'll see the name. There's a vision store there, glasses, and then he's there. It's Boca Raton, and the phone number to call, remember this is Pencil Talk Radio, is 561-479-1411. 561-479-1411. Dr. Lampert, thank you very much for sharing all your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Anita.